Hi everyone! So we're back for another Midnight Masquerade Aurora video. In this one I will show you how I attached the corset from the first video to the main dress. So if you missed either of those videos about making the corset or constructing the main dress, I will link them in the cards or in the description below. So I'm starting by aligning the center front of the corset to the center front of the dress. And then I drew with chalk along the top edge so I would know where to cut the excess fabric. Next, I trimmed down the seam allowance of the main dress so these seams wouldn't be as bulky and get in the way over the top of the actual corset. And then I ironed open all of these seam allowances. I only did this for the seam allowances for the bodice portion of the dress, not the skirt panels. No way, way too many skirt panels to be doing this for all of those as well. So really just focusing on the bodice panels and flattening out those seam allowances. So here's how all of the bodice portion seam allowances look ironed open flat, and there is the skirt portion of the dress. So here you can see very faintly the white chalk markings of where I need to cut off the excess bodice fabric along the top edge. So now I've placed the corset on top of the dress again to get an idea of how much I need to take off the center back panels. And here I'm also trying to demonstrate that although the dress and the corset were made using the same pattern, I'm not too fussed if the seams don't align because the purple fabric actually has more stretch and give to it. It's just the nature of the fabric as well as the fact that it has no boning in it. Just before I can hack off the top edge of the dress, I need to baste the fabric layers together. So the chiffon overlay on the bodice is sure to shift if I don't do this step, so that's why I'm doing it now. And here is the basting stitching up close. So you can see it's just following just under the chalk marking of where the top edge will be. So now I'm trimming slightly above the basted line, so I have a little bit of seam allowance to work with along the top edge of the bodice. And now that's looking much better. Now I'm folding the dress in half along the center front and pinning the center back pieces together for some stability. And then I align the rest of the dress panels and seams as best as I can, and this is basically a good way to check that both sides of the top of the dress are completely even. Now that I'm happy with the top edge shape, I can move on to actually attaching the corset to the dress. I carefully lay the corset right sides together on top of the dress and then use as many clips as I need to secure the top edge together. Again, I'm not too fussed with the seams not aligning perfectly, but I do like to make sure that the spacing between the seams is the same or as similar as possible on both sides. Now here, I am just showing that the center back panels will not be sewn down like the rest of the top edge. Same goes with the other back panel over there. I will leave these back panels free from the corset as I want the corset to be separate to the actual dress. And now this is the center front where I need to pay special attention that I sew this deep V shape. Now off to the sewing machine to sew the whole top edge down. I sew very slightly just above the boning and making sure to not sew through any boning. And here you can see I've maneuvered the dress so that I can sew that deep V shape in the center front. And continue down the other side of the top edge. Now I'm sewing all of that once again on top of my previous stitching just to make sure that it is extra secure. The skirt portion of the dress is super duper heavy, so it's important that the stitching is extra strong. Now I'm trimming down this excess seam allowance across the top edge. And I also cut as closely as possible to the stitch line down the deep V. You can also see that I've cut notches into the most bulky parts of the top edge to reduce any bulk, and also any corners I've clipped as well. As for this deep V, I didn't actually cut far enough down the first time around, so I'm going to go ahead with some scissors and cut further into it. Just make sure not to go through the stitch line, otherwise, yeah, that will cause some problems. So now it's time to turn the whole thing right side out, and thank you Bella May for the little point turner from the Secret Santa. It's come in super handy for this step. From the outside, the bodice is still a little puffy, but with some wearing of the dress, I think, and also the weight of the skirt, it will help to flatten all of that out. Now I've already showed you the corset lacing in the corset video, but I'll show you again for continuity. Like I mentioned in that corset video, I followed a lacing diagram which I'll link in the description below. And this is where we're at for the first try on. Keep in mind that the back of the purple fabric is still loose, which is why it looks a little big around the waist. So I realized after doing the try on that I needed extra fabric in the back. So I had inserted godets everywhere except for the center back. Luckily, I had just enough of my main dress fabrics for one more dress panel in the center back, and I followed the exact same process for cutting out this panel as I did with my previous dress panels. I'll link in the description the video for the whole dress panel cutting out video so you can see how I did that. So here's the back dress panel. Note that there are two pieces of those pieces because the center back panel will have a zip down the back. And so basically these last two panels will just start below the waist marking and be inserted into the center back, and there is roughly where the zipper will go. So the zipper will go into those center back panels. Hopefully that made sense, but I think you'll get a better sense of what I'm doing by watching through the rest of this video. So I'm pinning right sides together those center back dress panels, and here are the white chalk markings showing roughly where the zipper will be. So I've made sure to align the dress panels with those chalk markings, and also I'm only going to sew down about 3 to 4 inches of the top of these and leave the rest of that free flowing. It's the same thing that I did with all of the other dress panels. I'm not going to explain it in this video because the whole process was covered in a previous video. For those of you who did watch my previous videos, you would know that I basically sewed the dress panels so that the chiffon layer would flow over the top and separately to the main fabric. I'm just going to speed through the process of sewing these last dress panels together. I will link in the description the video for how I sewed all of those dress panels together. It took a very long time and it's a very repetitive process. So if you want to know how I did it, go check out that other video. And finally, all of the dress panels are finally sewn in. Here is a close-up of the top edge of the corset. Of course, the back top edges still need finishing off, but I will save that for a future video. And here's the inside of all of the skirt panels. And all of the French seams for the chiffon skirt overlay have been sewn, apart from the very last back one where the zip will be, but all of the others have been sewn here. You can see the French seam there. And that's it for this video, so Stay tuned for next week where I insert the zipper and close up the back of the dress. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment, follow me on Instagram. What else is there to do? I think that's all. Until then, stay creative.